Over the course of my career, there have been a number of pieces that are significant markers of how I've been able to pioneer the ancient metal techniques that are my passion. My Eastern Repoussé cuff bracelets stand out among my most favorite and certainly the most talked about of my work. They're the best example of what I strive to do, creating this sweet spot between designs which are archetypal and eminently familiar, and yet completely different from what other artists are doing or have ever done. My course, Eastern Repoussé II Rings and Cuffs, is a metalsmithing and jewelry course designed specifically for individuals who have previously studied Eastern Repoussé with me through my online courses, my in person workshops, or my DVD and streamable video, Eastern Repoussé and Chasing. This advanced course empowers people to master the art of creating exquisite rings and cuff bracelets using the Eastern Repoussé technique. Chased and repoussé cuffs are a holy grail of repoussé jewelry work, which I find interesting. When I was in school, I was always getting in trouble with my teacher because he would say filigree is a jewelry technique, repoussé is a silversmithing technique, and I was not supposed to mix them up. But I had looked at so much work from antiquity that was clearly recognizable as the repoussé method I had been learning, which was Eastern. Flash forward years later, when I became a teacher, I kept getting into arguments with students about whether or not you could take a flat strip of metal, do repoussé in this technique, have it be fairly high relief, and then bend that strip into a cuff bracelet. And I would say, no, no, no. It's like trying to do repoussé on a flat disc and then forging it into a bowl afterwards. You would lose your height. It would be all warped. And they would argue with me and they would say, oh, well, so and so does this and so does that. And when I would look, it was always the same thing. Low relief with a little bit of repoussé in the center of a strip, and then the tips were bent around to form a cuff bracelet. But that's not really a repoussé cuff. The idea that the entire structure needed to be forged from the technique that defines it was hard for people to understand. I decided I'd have to demonstrate it. So I planned out my design for the first cuff I created, and then I cut the strip and realized immediately once I started hammering, oh, I haven't just taken off the training wheels, I've taken off the handlebar. One of the things that is indicative of Eastern Repoussé is that it is always done within a matrix of metal, even if it's going to get cut out later. By beginning with just the strip that was going to form all of these ups and downs and peaks and valleys and spirals that are very indicative of my own style, I realized I'd lost the matrix. I was no longer working within that framework, and it was different from working on something like a bowl, which still has a larger area of metal encompassing the relief. But I learned very quickly how to cope with that, how to keep control of the missing background matrix in order to keep the correct shape. And like most of my theoretical metalsmithing, it worked exactly as I had expected. I created it within this U shape. Because the tips are very low relief, in order to be comfortable for the wearer, those could be bent over afterwards or forged a little bit without distorting the relief. But the center half of the bracelet could be super dramatic and super detailed in as much relief as I wanted, which allowed me to create these under-over effects as I developed this series. That had to be done in the round. There was no way around it, forgive the pun. It had to be done in this U-shape structure. As soon as I started creating and putting these cuffs out into the world, people wanted to know how to make them. Along the way, I realized that if it worked for a cuff, it would work for a ring. I began teaching that process because it does work just like the cuff, but it could be done a little faster and really help people grasp the steps and the working order in less time. But it wasn't a cuff bracelet because there was never enough time in in-person courses. I'm really excited that finally, in this online format I've designed, I'm able to share step-by-step in real time how I go about creating these Eastern Repoussé rings and cuff bracelets. Learning and making projects no longer have to be rushed and limited to that final day of an in-person workshop when everyone is tired and trying to finish as much as possible before they have to pack up and go home. The learning is spaced out, so people have time to work at their own pace, in their own space, while I take them completely through the process of making the ring so they'll understand all of the significant design requirements, how to fold over the edges, when to fold over the edges, where the relief needs to be concentrated, how to create more illusion of depth on a small scale. when there is a narrow strip of metal in which to accommodate the entire design. Then we move on to the cuff. We get to work on a larger scale with plenty of time to do it. People get to learn exactly how I pioneered the process and achieve a cuff of their own design without the agony and uncertainty of trial and error. With over 11 hours of detailed demonstrations, learners will gain comprehensive insights into the intricate steps involved in crafting these stunning pieces. Additionally, the course offers 10 hours of live question and answer coaching sessions on Zoom and daily support through the course dashboard where everyone can get their questions answered, ensuring a seamless learning experience. With 5 months of access to the course content, everyone can learn, revisit, and refine their skills at their own pace. My students are people who love learning and making new things. Teaching online means I can finally take them so much further in their journey by building on the techniques that I taught in person for so long. My goal with teaching is not only to teach my techniques. My goal with teaching is to enable people to take what they've learned from me and put their own voices in it. That they can take the ideas they have that they're finding challenging to pursue and let me help them get where they really want to go. If you have studied Eastern Repoussé with me before, or if you have made the projects from my Eastern Repoussé video and understand the basic steps, then you're ready to unleash your potential and take your skills to new heights. Join me for Eastern Repoussé II Rings and Cuffs and master the art of creating rings and cuff bracelets that truly showcase your own unique style. I look forward to sharing my whole process with you.